Hey there. It's actually October 8th now. But still reviewing books from yesterday, Wednesday the 7th. In the first part, this week's reviews, I did the DC books. Second part, I did some indies by Brian K. Vaughan. And in this last part of this week's reviews, I'm going to review Marvel stuff, starting with Secret Wars number 6. It says 6 of 8 up here in this corner. That's actually wrong. Apparently, this series has been bumped up to 9 issues, so that's something. This issue actually begins in kind of a weird way. It begins with a 3-week time skip. And I'm guessing this is to accommodate the events of the multiple tie-ins to this book, which involve numerous heroes and numerous factions of the battle world kind of revolting and rebelling against Doom, as Doom so elegantly states in one of these first pages here, where he tells his daughter Valencia, "My world is in disarray," of Valeria, my bad. "My world is in disarray. Recent disorder has escalated into open rebellion in several kingdoms." So just kind of telling us everything that happened in the tie-ins is finally affecting the main story here. We also learn that Valeria has captured 2 of the Cabal, Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight, and that Black Swan, who is also from the Cabal, has kind of turned coat and joined with Doom. We have no idea where Thanos is. I mean, he appears at the end of this issue, but I'm not going to spoil exactly in what capacity and what he does. But Valeria is getting more and more suspicious of her father keeping secrets from her, as she tells to the rest of the Future Foundation. Meanwhile, we have the 2 Reeds working together, Reed Richards of the 616 universe and the Ultimate Universe, who in the 3 weeks since have banded together in order to save the world from Doom, or something to that effect. There's also a weird character, this guy here, the Prophet, who's been leading his own rebellion against Dr. Doom on the world. A lot to catch up on in these 3 weeks that have passed in this world. Yet again, meanwhile, the 2 Spider-Men of Battle World, 616 and Ultimate, Peter and Miles, with some help from Valeria, eventually discover the Molecule Man, Owen Reese, in the middle of the battle world, and he tells the Spider-Men what's up, that he is powering the world, he is giving Dr. Doom his godhood abilities, and basically spoiling the rest of the stuff for the Spider-Men. Dr. Doom does some more shit with his council, and then we get Namor and Black Panther, who come across Warden Stephen Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum on this planet, where they discover a weapon they might be able to use against Doom. And the last little bit, this very kind of interesting last bit here, is Susan Storm, telling her and Doom's son Franklin a story about the Fantastic Four, who of course don't quite exist in the same capacity on Battleworld. We know that Reed Richards escaped. We know that Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, is the son of Battleworld, and that leaves the Thing, who's still kind of MIA in this story. But again, I'm not going to really spoil where the Thing's been this whole time, even though it's revealed in this story. The time skip is an interesting device, in that it allows a lot of exposition to happen in retrospect all at once in this issue. So this issue feels like we're playing a lot of catch-up. It almost feels as though we're missing a couple issues in this story, even though they're just skipping ahead of time and kind of recapping what happened in some of the tie-ins, I presume. It's an interesting plot device, like I said. I'm not sure I like it. I mean, again, it is an efficient way to just advance the story ahead, and all the exposition is told in retrospect. So we do feel all caught up. But it also feels a bit rushed. It feels like there was a lot happening in the time skip that we didn't get to see, that was just talked about. That I maybe would have liked to see, to seen, instead of just planting all these characters at these kind of different moments and saying, okay, here's the characters have finally went all through this, and now they're going to finally advance to the step where they can advance the plot. I mean, I'm still really liking a lot of this. The writing is great. The art's fantastic. There's still a lot of the story I like. But it does feel like we hiccuped a bit, you know, and now we have to kind of readjust and say, okay, so this all happened in the story. Now this is where we are. And then hopefully in the next issue, we'll be continuing more a more kind of linear sort of thing where we just have events leading into, you know, the next events, A, B, C, instead of going A to F to E, F, E, F, G. Yeah. Whatever. I can't remember the. It's. I'm tired, guys. It's late. It's early. Whatever. I have stuff to do tomorrow. But yeah, so Secret Wars, a bit of a hiccup, but it's regaining its pace. It handled it quite effectively. It stumbled, but it landed on its feet. Overall, I guess is a good way to put it. And I'm still really liking the story. I just kind of wish it was over by now, because as you can see from the next issues I'll be reviewing, we're already past that in a lot of these other books, and now it feels like we're kind of playing catch up with finding out how Secret Wars ended in order to get us to all these new issue 1s, which I will be reviewing now, starting with Doctor Strange issue number 1. And I kind of picked this up on a whim. I heard really good things about it earlier today, and I mean, I like wizards. Wizards are cool, and I haven't really been following Constantine on the DC side, even though he's like a wizard I'd be interested in, and I picked up a few of his stuff, and I kind of liked it, but it was kind of meh. And Doctor Strange is really picking up the wizard slack. I really enjoyed this book. It was really super duper fun. We begin with this really cool recap of Doctor Doom's origin story. That's like using the old comic book panels. It's just a really neat effect, and it's really neat dialogue. And then we jump right into some like I said Doctor Doom before. Then we jump right into some Doctor Strange magic wizard fight action as he's in the traveling in the spirit realms, another realm or whatever, fighting this just weird magical creature. And the art in this book, as you can see here, is just gorgeous. It's just fantastic with bright, saturated reds and blues and all that. And then everything just looks so imaginative. So we have this like giant teddy bear, and we're kind of wondering, okay, what's happening here in this book? And we figure out after this like great initial battle where we have Stephen's monologue explaining who he is and how his powers work and all that, as he goes up against like this giant plant creature and this weird kind of spirit magic woman thing, soul eater, we find out is what she is. And just like this great little fight scene here with all these magical things happening. Stephen turning all this shit into flowers, and it's just great. It's fun magic stuff, and it ends with him making out with the Spirit Eater on top of the defeated creature, which is like just a great way to begin your story. We find out that all the weird stuff with the flowers and the teddy bear was because it all took place within the mind of a 9-year-old boy whose soul was being invaded by these creatures. And you can see the teddy bear on the bed, and then the sunflowers over here. So it all connects. It's very dream logic-y in a way. You know, the things that you see when you're awake influence the things that happen in your dreams. And it's a great aesthetic. And then coming out of that, like that big dream sequence magic fight battle, we have just a normal scene for Stephen Strange in New York, and Stephen explains like this is his normal, and we kind of see through his wizard eyes, and it's this great black and white effect where only things that are magical are in color, and it's this really fun kind of way this really fun aesthetic for the story as you see like what's popping out, what is Stephen's normal, it's just. This is such a fun book. He goes to the bar where he meets up with some other Marvel magic users. Who does he meet up with? The Scarlet Witch, Shaman, and Dr. Voodoo. and they just discuss like being wizards and magic and all that. We find out that there's something scaring a lot of the magical creatures in the universe. A storm is a brewing sort of thing. You know, the magic birds flying away is kind of a metaphor they use. And then we end with Stephen at the Sanctum Sanctorum helping yet someone else with a magic related problem. As we lead into the next issue and find out a bit more of what's going on in the overall story. I opened it up and said, this is a really fun issue. It's fun, it's magic battles, Stephen uses an axe, uses a sword. He's a wizard, it's wizard fights, and Stephen Strange is also kind of a New York hipster, but like an older New York hipster, like, you know, someone who moved in the 70s, and he still lives in Greenwich Village. Like, he's a New York cool guy, like a patented New York Greenwich Village cool guy, even, you know, in this like kind of rebooted thing. They make him a bit younger in terms of, I guess, personality. I mean, I haven't really read a lot of Doctor Strange, to be completely honest. This is like my first real experience with him. But he comes across as like this really cool character who's smart, he's the Sorcerer Supreme. He is the main authority in this world that is just so full of magic and wonder and just like bright, cool, magic wizard stuff. And like, yeah, I guess if you like wizard stuff, if you like fun, then this is a great book. Just a masterfully done first issue. Really enjoyable, really fun. I can't wait to read more of this. Next up, another issue 1, Invincible Iron Man, written by Brian Michael Bendis now. Issue 1. What a cool cover. I mean, you've probably seen it a whole bunch if you pay attention to comics. I think this cover was like announced in, like, I don't know, February or something. But it's just really cool looking, and like actually having it in person, it's so neat. And this is another really fun issue number 1. I mean, I think the biggest strength here is like Bendis' writing of Stark. Stark he's just such a charming asshole in this book. He is likable in an unlikable way. Like, he's not a bad person. He's a good guy. He's a superhero. But he's such a dick. He's so obnoxious and just in your face about how smart he is and how rich he is. But at the same time, he's like, deep down, he's a good guy. Like, as much as he's flaunting and bragging and all that, he's still likable. He still really has kind of the, good in him. So he's a charming asshole. That's Tony Stark's character. And Brian Michael Bendis is just really good at writing that sort of character who has all these kind of really kind of off-putting traits, but is a good guy. So, like, you like him despite all that, kind of because he's obnoxious. He's the cool guy. He's the guy that if you're a nerd, you see the girl you like dating, you're like, oh my god, he's such a douchebag, and he's just going to break your heart. Why are you dating him? But then, like, you meet him, and he's like, okay, he's a douchebag, but he's also, like, pretty cool. I totally have a crush on him now. Like, he's that sort of guy. He's, he's a cool guy you want to hang out with despite him being kind of a dick. And that's just, it really comes across. It's really well done in this book. And like I said, he's likable. As for plot, Tony invents a new armor that is all of his other armors in one. So kind of dealing with the fact that he has like 80 goddamn billion armors. He finally combined them into one armor. That is everything in one, the perfect, ideal Iron Man armor, so to speak. He has a date with a Sri Lankan doctor that he tries to get with that rebuffs him because of his reputation as a horn dog. And meanwhile, as for like supervillainy, we have Madame Mask breaking into Latveria and kind of just stealing stuff. She receives a mysterious briefcase in the beginning of this issue, very Pulp Fiction style briefcase that she receives, and she's planning something. We're not quite sure what yet, but it's something big, especially for Mask, who's not a huge villain, like as far as I know. She's no Doctor Doom, she's no Doc Ock, she's no like Red Skull, but she's planning something big, and so that's kind of exciting. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just lovable Dick Tony, cool Iron Man stuff. It's fun to be Tony Stark is the thesis of this book essentially, or at least of this issue. That he's a billionaire genius who can basically do whatever he wants with impunity, and is a good guy. He's a dick, but he's a good guy, and it's fun to be Tony Stark. And kind of this book, this comic is kind of, as much as one can live vicariously through a superhero, it's that sort of feeling where this is kind of, this is as close as anyone will get to like being Tony Stark, unless you're like Richard Branson or Elon Musk or someone like that. One bad thing I'll admit to this book, as much as I enjoyed it, a lot of the panel layouts are confusing. They tend to go first, like either entirely from left to right, like across the whole spread, because most of this book is in spreads. But then occasionally you'll have, like this panel, or this spread rather, it reads boom and then boom. It's not up to down, up to down. It's straight across and then straight across. Meanwhile, this page over here, let me get to it, is straight across, this panel, this, and then it's panel layout's kind of a mess. It'll take you a couple like go-overs to see, okay, in which order do these speech bubbles make sense. But once you make sense of it, it's a really fun book. Tony Stark is a really fun character, and that's basically it. Maybe I'm delirious because I'm really tired, but I just had so much fun with this book and with Doctor Strange. Again, this is kind of my first real introduction to Iron Man. I'm more familiar with him from the movies and then from some of the crossovers I've read than from an actual issue of Iron Man. But this was a fun first issue, fun jump on point. I recommend it a lot. And the last book this week, finally, that I picked up, one that I've been waiting for, like the one I'm most excited for this week, and was not a disappointment at all. Boom! Spider-Man #1. Dan Slott's still on it. And again, knocks it out of the park. This is, again, just a fun book to read. We begin with Peter, well, kind of a little catch-up, not so much catch-up, but, where we are with Spider-Man. Parker Industries has blown up. It's a worldwide company now, worth billions of dollars, helping a lot of people out. And so we begin with Peter Parker kind of selling out. He's advertising his new device, kind of a iPhone, Apple Watch, kind of, big smart device sort of thing. Selling out with the Spider-Man's now the Parker Industries kind of mascot. And he even sells out that big line with great power comes great battery life, blah, 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 blah. And then we jump from that immediately, next page, to a car chase through Shanghai. Parker Industries has an office in Shanghai, and it is being robbed. But luckily, you have Spider-Man with the new Spider-Mobile. You have not Mockingbird. What's her name? Yeah, it is Mockingbird. You have Mockingbird in the passenger seat, as you have this big, fast car chase through Shanghai in the Spider-Mobile. And it's exciting. And best of all, even though you have a richer Parker, a Parker with all these cool new toys, a Parker that everyone has toys of, there's Spider-Man toys and backpacks, and everyone loves Peter Parker. Everyone loves Spider-Man. I mean, they don't know Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Everyone loves Spider-Man. He has fans all over the world now, and he's still the same quippy Spider-Man. And there's some really funny quips here. He jumps out, and everyone asks, "Where are you from? Where do you come from?" And Peter says, "Queens, New York." Accent give it away. And just he's on the top of his game. This is a Peter on top of his game, and it is amazing to see in action. Again, the art is fantastic. It's a bit house styley, but it's a good house style. Again, bright reds, bright blues, everything pops out. Spider-Man is bright, fun, and colorful, just as he should be. And he's telling jokes, he's making quips, he's beating up the bad guys. He has lots of new toys to play with. He has the car, he has a bunch of new webbing options that are all in the story, and it's just really good stuff. Really fun stuff. As a like, just well, it's a fun 3 books. We then have a little scene with Peter as the office guy, as the big CEO, and he's a nice guy as a CEO. He has locations all around the world. He discusses how he's paying all of his laborers a fair wage, even in China. He's not exploiting cheap Chinese labor to build his products. He's cutting his salary to that of a middle manager instead of a big CEO. He starts the Uncle Ben Foundation to help, underprivileged kids and all that. Like, he's as ethical a businessman as he is a superhero, and that's great to see of Peter Parker, that it's not all going to his head, that, despite finally being a success, he still has that, Parker kind of humbleness to him. The old power comes, with power comes great responsibility thing. And yeah, I mean, that's not even the most of it. Peter, it's also discovered that Peter has a decoy Spider-Man. He's hired Hobie Brown, he's the Prowler, who's like a former kind of C Spider-Man villain. He's hired Hobie Brown to be a decoy Peter Parker. He's doing the old kind of Tony Stark, Iron Man is my bodyguard thing, so he has a decoy Spider-Man to be his bodyguard in case he gets, I don't know, ambushed at a wedding, which happens in this book, and you have we see how Hobie handles being Spider-Man while Peter can't, run off and change and save the day on his own. And yeah, it's just really fun. You have Dan Slott at the kind of like Dan Slott's bringing his A game for this. This is a really good issue 1 where we have Spider-Man quipping away, and it's legitimately funny quips. Like, I actually laughed at a lot of them. You have a lot of exposition going on. None of it feels like too much. You never feel dogpiled by exposition. And it's just a fun, like, rollicking adventure that catches you up to the new status quo incredibly fast, incredibly well, and again, just incredibly fun. Fun is the like first word I use to describe all 3 issues that I've discussed of these number 1s, and I think it really is the most apt. These books are just pure comic fun. At this point. Besides the main story, we also have 5 backups at the back of this book that I'm not going to go into much detail, but basically each one is a kind of tease for another Spider book. So this first one here shows us a bit of Spider-Man 2099. The next story shows us what Silk has been up to after Secret War. We then move on to Spider-Woman, who's chatting on the phone with Captain Marvel about her new pregnancy. The Spider-Verse comic, Web Warriors. We see what they're going to be going up against. And finally, we get a peek at Miles Morales, which is really cool. Can't wait to pick up that book. And then at the end, because this book is overstuffed, we have, like, Peter Parker funnies, Spider-Man funnies, and it was actually quite enjoyable. So, yeah, I mean, this is a $6 book, and, yeah, $6 book, overstuffed, you get a lot of content, and it's all good, all enjoyable. I mean, some of the backup stories, depending on how much you're invested in the characters, will be but the main story is great. It's a great Peter Parker. Like, just to see how he's changed, which isn't that much, despite all this new change in his life and being a globetrotter, jet setter, trend person, rich guy. I mean, not rich, wealthy, but, powerful. Now that he's a powerful CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, presumably. He's still good old Peter Parker from Forest Hills, Queens. So yeah, just again, really fun book, really great Spider-Man book, and I like this new status quo. I really want to see where Dan Slott takes it, because I think he's great. I really do think he's a great Spider-Man writer who really gets the character and can take them in like all these weird places and still have them be really true to who Spider-Man is. So yeah, just really, really glad I picked up this book. And that is finally it for this week. Lots of comics. I mean, the Marvel stuff is just blew me away, and I really can't wait to pick up the rest of these number ones because as you can tell, I really enjoyed them so far. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like this video. If you want, please subscribe. Any questions, comments, anything whatsoever, feel free to leave them down below, and I will try to get to them. I said this in the other videos, but in case you didn't watch those, I'm going to New York Comic Con, which starts later today, because it's after midnight. So from October 8th to the 11th at the New York City. And if you haven't gotten tickets now, you're probably not going to get them. But if you're in the New York area, if you have tickets, if you're going to New York Comic Con, I'd love to see you there. So if you notice me, like feel free to just approach me and say, hey, I'm one of the 6 people who watches your dumb videos on YouTube. And I'm like, oh my god, you exist. Cool. And that'll be fun. And yeah, that's about it. Finally made it through this week's books. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope you will join me next week for some more comic book reviews, or hope to see you at the con.